Hey guys, welcome back to Purgatory After Hours. It's more or less Purgatory before hours. It's pretty early here. We're in upstate New York at my Albany shop. We're here with Dana.
Hi.
Dana's been my artist for a few years now, and she's come a long ways. Dana, tell us about you. What's your style tattooing? Where you come from? All that fun stuff.
Um, well, I'm originally from here,
Hmm.
um, just a little bit north. Um, I started out tattooing, super into black and gray, a lot of illustrative stuff. I've recently dived into all of the realism
Hmm.
work. Trying my best, learning still, but loving it.
I mean, every day is a learning process. So I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like we never stop learning. So that's a plus.
Yeah.
What um, what would you say got you into the more illustrative stuff? Was it just your love for the artwork of it, or?
Yeah, when I was younger, my dad was a charcoal artist.
Okay.
His mom was an oil painter. So everybody I grew up with the art style of realism
Hmm.
or in that nature.
I
So
know. I used to watch you draw, and I used to think of like your drawings as those rubber stamps. You know what I mean?
yeah,
From like the 1920s when I used to do newspapers
yeah,
that would carve the rubber stamps and
very
roll it out.
woodcut.
That's what I always used to think about that. And like if you open up an old Bible, you would look into and you would see like the stipple and the lines for the
Mm-hmm.
shading. So
I
that
like
was
all the scientific notebook
yeah.
style kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. So you do a lot of fine line tattoos,
Mm-hmm.
and we had Skylar on one of the episodes, and she's another fine line artist. And like, what's your take on today with the growing of fine line tattoos?
I every client that I come in or comes in for a fine line tattoo, I give them the whole talk.
Hmm.
Um, it could age poorly, it could age fine, it could blow out, could disappear. Um, I don't mind doing them. I think they're really fun. I think that it's a skill that you need to learn.
Yeah.
Um, I've had a big problem with all of the permanent makeup artists just trying
Hmm.
their hand at fine line
And that's popping up everywhere.
everywhere. Um, the single needle stuff I really like,
Hmm.
but it has to be done well. There's Mark Mahoney who really crafted
Pioneer,
that
yeah, yeah.
skill, and he does it really well. But even then, there's a chance that it's gonna heal like shit. So
Yeah, I mean, I always try to tell people like if you could think of a fine line in like few years, that line's gonna be so bold as if it's a traditional tattoo.
mm-hmm.
So like even old school tattoos, from the 50s, they didn't start off with bold needles back then. They were using like threes and fives,
Yeah.
and it's like now you look at them, they look like they were done with a 14. So I try to steer away and tell people the longevity isn't there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's popular now. And do you think like maybe in the next 5 years that popularity is going to be a big regret?
um yeah, probably, but no different than people getting the new school
Yeah,
cartoon owls. They're the old ass wizard shitty
yeah,
tattoos.
the 90s wizards.
Yeah. To an extent, I think that tattoos aren't really meant to be a forever thing.
Yeah,
Even if they are, I have tattoos that I love, but for shit.
well, it's just like being a kid. You might want to be an astronaut as a kid, and
Yeah.
as you get older your mind changes. When you first start getting tattooed, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever's popular then is what you really want. And when 10 years goes down, you're like, wow, why'd I do that?
Oh, I'm a big fan of artists blacking out limbs, artists doing full blast over, just putting stuff on top of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, you can always change a tattoo.
Oh, 100%.
So, you know.
100%. So, but would you like so with fine line came what's it called?
Syllogism?
Zibism.
Syllogism?
Would you categorize that with fine line, or would you just say it's tribal?
I would say it's not tribal. I have a big problem with tribal. People ask me for tribal because it's all I don't want to touch that. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm gonna mess it up. Every symbol thing means something. Syllogism is like
Futuristic.
yeah. I would say it's more just like a sketchy illustrative
You know what I see
kind
it
of
as?
thing.
So like I see it as 90s tribal, just fine lined. Because
Yeah.
I always think of like the Mike Tyson face tattoo. Just
Yeah.
imagine that outlined in fine line. That's
It'd be
cybertrillism,
this- Yeah, it would
whatever.
be the same thing.
I can never say that word ever. I don't know what it means. I don't know who came up with it, but if you're watching this, I hate you. Anyway, so yeah, I mean that's trendy, and I feel like in like even 3 years when they did that style, I feel like they might as well just went black with it because you're putting such tiny lines close together to create like fine points,
Yeah.
and like the sun is gonna destroy that.
Yep.
So yeah, so what would you say your most unique style that you recently fell in love with?
It's unique, I would say, to the area that we're in. I'm big into the stipple realism. I do a lot of the, pocket watches and roses. That's like the big, smooth black and gray, but I really love doing the stipple portraits more than anything.
You gotten really good at it too.
They're my favorite.
It's crazy because like when you started working for me, like I never like you taught yourself basically because you were my apprentice, but at the same time I never really I gave you like the fundamentals and you do stuff I could never do. And I'm like sitting there like, oh, I wish I can do that. And I'm like, well, they surpassed me, and it makes me proud. I like it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like your animal portraits lately have been really killing it. So that's so awesome. Fun. What would you say your least favorite style?
Not a huge fan of doing color. And most recently, I'm not a huge fan of doing anything with line work. I feel like the more that I've been doing tattoos with absolutely no lines, when I jump back into doing line work, I'm like, this feels like I'm pulling my first line in my life.
I agree. So I started off as a traditional artist, and now that I've been doing like more realism stuff, I have so much more fun, and it's relaxing doing realism because I could just sit there and just like shade, shade, a little bit of line, shade, and it's just so comforting.
Yeah.
And then it's like pulling lines, you're like, every line's a work. So I totally agree.
I feel like an artist when I'm doing like a realism tattoo. When I'm doing a line work tattoo, it feels like I'm doing like a math exam. Yeah. I've got to hone in.
It kind of, if you think about it, it kind of takes you back to like doing acrylics and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I enjoy it. So, but yeah, so where do you think in 10 years you'll be with this?
10 years is a long one. My 5-year goal is to have more of a following, kind of do one big piece a day, only my creative style. 10-year goal, I would definitely want to have my own studio.
That should be always the end game.
Yeah. I don't want to shop. I know that.
Private studio.
Yeah. I'm a lonely person. I work better that way.
No, I get it. It's good for some people. I just feel sometimes like the new private studio trend is destroying the industry because like our industry was built on walk-in tattoos. Nobody took appointments, and then recently it's become so like book online. You got to fill out this essay to get tattooed by this artist, and I feel like that's killing our industry because walk-in tattoos were basically, to me, like the base of owning a tattoo shop because you were catering a service and people who had last minute thought process and like the artwork on the walls to the flash. And it's like, do you think private studios are going to start like killing the idea of tattoo flash?
Yes, but at the same time, I'm an artist that I've had flash up on my board for months, but it's not the kind of flash that people want to stop in and grab. So I'm just now getting rid of designs that have been up there for 2 years. I also haven't taken a walk-in in the last 6 months because I've been booked with these bigger pieces. So besides me not having the time to do, traditional walk-in shop activities, I don't think that I would mentally be able to run a shop the way that you do. Dealing with everybody else, keeping all of your ducks in a row, even when you're not here, I could never do that.
It's a headache.
Yeah.
It's a headache. Well, because you manage the shop.
Yeah.
So. But like, it scares me in a sense because I grew up around like the whole flash on the walls, the whole traditional old school tattoo shop vibes, and it's like I see private studios popping up left and right, and I'm just like, is there gonna be an industry? Like, is tattooing gonna become corporate? Is it gonna become like the medical field? Like, you go to a chiropractor, you gotta book a massage. You know what I mean? So it's like it's like worries me where it's gonna be in 10 years. And I see a lot of like tattoo influencers talking about that it's only uphill from here. And I mean, I see some benefits, but at the same time, I'm the kind of guy that likes to go into the shop and
Yeah.
sit around and draw if I don't have appointments or I had a cancellation. I don't want to like have to open up my office and hope that somebody's gonna book that day out.
Yeah.
I want to open my door to a walk-in and hope that a walk-in comes out because my cancellation had an emergency and now I have nothing to do all day.
Yeah. I feel like the sucky part is we're already going downhill. So, you know, I wish that my 10-year goal was to be in a walk-in shop,
Yeah.
but I'm already molding myself to what's trendy.
Yeah.
As a young artist, I've experienced like old school shops, especially the first shop that I worked at. That was horrible. But I feel like me doing all these trendy tattoos and being a female artist, there's no way to go about it than just to mold myself into what the industry's becoming already.
100%. Yeah, you gotta evolve.
Yeah.
You gotta evolve. And I say that about even like the old heads that I hear on Facebook crying and begging for appointments, and they won't do a reel, they won't do a TikTok, they won't overly post to keep the algorithm. They think because they've been tattooing 20 some years that people should just go get tattooed by them. I'm like, no, you set your ways. Like, you don't understand you need to evolve, be a part of the culture, you know what I mean? Because this isn't 1990, this isn't the early 2000s anymore. And if you don't evolve, you're going to be a broke-ass artist. I don't care, you've been tattooing 30 years, and a lot of those artists, they suck.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, you've been tattooing 20 years, and you still tattoo like you've been tattooing 20 years ago. So, you know what I mean? I respect the whole evolution thing, and I'm really big into like the social media stuff. I've always been big into the social media stuff. It's fun for me. Like, I like to wake up in the morning like, how many likes did I get? And I rush to my platforms. But, you know, and you're right, you do have to evolve. The only thing I'm scared to evolve into is a private studio.
Yeah.
Because I like being in the public.
I get it.
I like having
We're
a
very
store.
different that way.
Yeah. No, 100%. No, you've always been very secluded. So,
yeah.
But that's kind of why I open up a shop in more of a touristy area, because I'm hoping that in 10 years that the art industry, if it dies down to the point where everybody's in private studios, there still be hope for businesses where tourists are going.
Yep.
So, I mean, you gotta evolve. You
Yep.
gotta evolve. So what do you think your biggest struggle is?
Probably the social aspect of everything.
Yeah.
You know, conventions aren't my cup of tea. I've tried many times. I'm not outgoing in the way that a lot of tattoo artists are, you know, super, not that I'm not friendly, but I like to be approached by clients, which isn't always the best thing.
Yeah.
Social media, I'm not really good at. It just doesn't cross my mind. I've got, you know, I'm going to draw for my appointment. I'm going to do my appointment. I have one tomorrow, you know. I don't see the road 4 months ahead of me.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get it. Some things work for other people, and you know, you have a decent following, so it works for you.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to be on there TikTok dancing and doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like maybe that struggle is what's gonna make you stronger later on too.
For sure, yeah.
Because you never know. In like 3 years, you might turn into a social butterfly.
I mean, this job has already made me much more social than I used to be, which I love, but...
What do you think you hate about conventions besides socializing?
Oh my god, it's like someone putting you in a cement box full of screaming children and music and then telling you to, like, draw a straight line. No mistakes, I cannot do it.
I think I love the conventions because of that.
Yeah, it's like two monkeys with cymbals in my ears when I'm trying to draw a line.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love conventions, as you know, so it's like I never really have anything bad to say about a convention other than I won't steer away from certain conventions I do all the time because there's so many promotions and you can't trust every promotion to promote that show. It could be dead. And then you're just standing around like, la, 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 la.
But that's what happens to us every time we go to Cali.
Yeah,
They do not like us there.
Cali is just, you have to have a specific style.
Yeah.
Like traditional artists, like where we were, like we did that one show, and it was a great show. I had fun.
Yeah, it was a lot
But
of
we
fun.
didn't make no money because every traditional artist was just sitting around. Everybody wanted that soft black and gray Chicano style, and like everybody from there already had their clients there, and there was not many walk-ups, and it was a bummer. I had fun.
It was a great time. I mean, we got to go to California.
Yeah,
so can't be mad.
It was fun. If you could travel anywhere, and I'm pretty sure I can answer this, if you could travel anywhere to tattoo, where would it be?
Sweden.
I knew it.
I would love to tattoo in Sweden.
So if anybody's watching this, you're from Sweden. Dana's looking for a spot in Sweden.
And a little bit of a vacation.
A little
too.
bit of vacation. Who vacations in Sweden? Isn't it cold?
Sometimes.
Oh man, you're from New York. It's cold enough here. Just starts talking in a Swedish accent.
No, I can't do
that. So, have you ever studied their work in Sweden?
There's a lot of cool realism artists.
Really?
There's a lot of that, like, cybersyllogism.
That's Europe
stuff.
in general.
Yeah.
Because I was going to do the Italy show in Milan. And, obviously with timing, it just wasn't right timing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking up the artists and stuff, and that's all I saw out there. I was like, ooh.
Yep.
I don't like that. But it's popular out there. So, if you're into that, I guess that's where you're going to go.
I'll do those tattoos all day.
I know you will. So this is going to be the most random question, but what is the weirdest tattoo you've ever done?
Oh my god, I get asked this all the time. So my first answer is always my self-portrait that I did on your leg.
Yes, that's my favorite.
Yeah, it's also my favorite. You let me do that at one of the conventions.
Yep. And it's going to stay there forever. When I black out my leg, I'm going to black out around it.
I have to see it in all of your workout TikToks.
Yep.
Yep, there I am. But a tattoo that I've done on, like, an actual client, there was one of my regular clients got his nipple turned into a chocolate chip cookie, and then Cookie Monster was holding it.
That's awesome.
And that was probably the weirdest
one.
one.
How did he take the nipple?
Horrible.
Was it horrible?
Yeah.
Like, it was almost not worth the comedy aspect.
No, he was, like, sweating, had to take a break.
Do you think it's a party trick now for him? I hope he's
hope
watching
so.
this.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, can you, like, tag us in the picture? Because I'm curious. I've never seen this tattoo, so...
I have a photo. I can show you.
No, I want him to tag us.
Okay.
I want to see his, his
sure.
comedy. So what would you say, like, your least favorite tattoo you've done?
Least favorite tattoo.
Not necessarily because it was a dumb idea, but it was just least favorite because maybe it was complicated.
That's a hard one. Because I feel like I come out of all of my tattoos being like, oh, I hated that.
Yeah.
This looks horrible.
It's just an artist thing.
There's definitely been times that I've taken on more than I can handle. Just because I feel like I could, and that's my only way to get further. In the beginning of all of the realism and fine line stuff, I'd be like, sure, I can do that tattoo, super thumb on the or super small on the inside of your thumb.
Yeah.
So I've probably made some poor decisions there. Like, of course I'll do this fine line tattoo in your ear, but at the same time, they know the risks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like the tattoo Skylar did the other day. It was so small.
Yeah.
But people all the time, this is the crazy part, people all the time hit me up with stuff like that. And I'm 6'2", 300 pounds. You want me to do this super tiny size of a dime tattoo on you?
Yeah,
but my hands don't work that
Yeah.
way. Go to the girls that are small and dainty. You don't want me doing that because you're going to have a big dot.
It's the same thing, like pulling a giant traditional, like, back piece. A line that you could pull in one go, it takes me like 6 or 7 because I have to keep moving my arm down.
Well, no, I'm a monster with it. Yeah.
Could not do that.
Yeah. So, so what machines are you currently running?
I have the Critical Torque.
Okay, do you like it?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I was actually curious about that machine.
I like it a lot. I like I know this is just like the tech side of it, but I do like that it tells you how much to charge at the end.
Yeah, that's dope. That honestly would help every artist in the industry, including the ones that work for us.
Yeah, it takes a lot of weight off my shoulder because, you know, sometimes you get choked up at the end of a tattoo and you're like, I don't want to ask you for $600 right now, but I can turn my machine around. I was like, the machine's telling me that you owe me this.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say that I'm like proud of you and the other girls is that you have more like morals when it comes to pricing, where most tattoo artists are like, yeah, you owe me $2,000, you know, straight out blank face. They don't care about the person's pockets. I've always been like the kind of guy where I understand the struggles in life, so that's why you guys used to yell at me for being too cheap sometimes, but I'm just like, listen, their budget was this, I worked with their budget, that's what I charge.
And then they came back.
That's how I got so booked.
Yeah, that's how I get so booked too. And then I've been trying to tell this to the girls, especially working with bigger pieces. Sarah's back now, which I love, but we usually do the full sleeve projects, and there's a way to go about it where, sure, you're starting off with the 2 or 3 hour session because that's all they can afford in the beginning, but you have to keep in mind that 2 or 3 hour session, you're only getting a small portion done, and they still have the rest of the arm to go. So you could charge them $600-700, or you could charge them $300 and make the sleeve as a whole more affordable.
Exactly.
And then they can come back sooner.
Exactly. You know? And you know, I just noticed a lot of tattoo artists, they always like try to like get as much as they can out of somebody, and there's even influencer artists online that brag about how much money they make tattooing. And with everything going on in our country and the economy and everything, I feel like it's only right as an artist and in the service industry to work with your clients instead of trying to take every bit of dollar you can get from your clients. And you know, like, I'm sure there's artists who are going to disagree with me and tell me I'm a cheap artist and blah blah blah, and who gives a fuck.
Well, that's the thing. And also, like, a livable wage isn't, you know, one big tattoo that was worth a lot of money. A livable wage is, you know, maybe 1 or 2 tattoos a day that are affordable for the client, but it's consistently every day. That's how you know.
I've always seen it like a paycheck.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so I have a client coming in for a sleeve or a half sleeve, and their budget is $350. I'm gonna do $350 worth of that tattoo. And then we're gonna book them again, and then their budget for that I'm gonna run with. We're gonna do that again, and then before you know it, you got a monthly client that's giving you money monthly. So, you know, there's ways around it. You don't have to, like, take every dollar to one shot. And our industry, unfortunately, is becoming that. You got artists that are tattooing for a year and 2 years, and they're like, I'm $300 an hour. I'm like, no, you're not. I don't care how good you are. And they have
availability tomorrow, too. You know, no one's coming in.
No. And, you know, they're some of them are good artists. I'm not going to bash them. Some of them are good artists, but you're not only just paying for the artwork, you're paying for the experience. You're paying for your artist's mental capabilities. If they're not nice and they're not treating you with respect, they're not worth $300. I don't care if they're doing the cleanest realism portraits. You know what I mean? Like, your experience there should be worth more than the artwork. And that's sad to say, because I know people who've gotten tattooed in the house by an artist, and that artist unfortunately has an amazing personality. And people won't stop going to them because of that. And you can go into a shop and get tattooed and get better quality, but unfortunately, that guy's got a good personality.
It's a big thing in the industry right now. Like, if you make funny TikToks, you know, then you're booked and busy.
You gotta be fun. You gotta be outgoing. You can't be like I said, the old heads. They don't change. They're arrogant. They're mean, and they don't understand the industry changed. And a lot of them are like, what do you call when men are misogynistic? Yeah. So a lot of them are misogynistic, and it's like, just give up. Like, my shops are all female, except for Brandon. And it's like, I probably have the lesser drama out of all my shops and the lesser problems compared to most shops.
And clients come in here all the time. They're like, I love the energy in here. Like,
well, you come in and they make weird noises all day. You'll hear random cat meows and woofs, and it's kind of weird. I think we have a pet in zoo sometimes.
I think we're just weird here, but in a good way.
No, clients love it. I've watched clients sit on the chairs and just laugh because Yana is making random animal noises.
And we become friends with, like, I know all of Skylar's clients from talking across the room to her, and you know, everybody is involved in the conversation.
Well, I saw too that clients insert themselves into conversations, and that's how comfortable they feel here. And I feel like all shops should be that same way. You wouldn't need a private studio if everybody worked that way.
If you're talking out loud in the shop, and we have a very open concept shop too, if you're talking out loud, that conversation's for everyone.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So you did a proper apprenticeship. I would say that I gave you a decent apprenticeship. What would your advice be for somebody who's trying to get an apprenticeship?
That's a tough one because, you know, me and Skylar have been managing the shop for a minute, so we have a whole bunch of people reach out asking to interview all the time. A lot of people start with Procreate, you know, tracing over or
digital cheating
over Procreate or Pinterest designs. So you're looking at, I see on TikTok all the time, like my tattoo portfolio as a beginner artist, and it's like, you know, that same switchblade half a face design I've seen 16 times. It's not a good place to start. You know, when you're tattooing, half the tattoos you get are people sending you Pinterest screenshots saying, I want this exactly, change nothing, thank you. But with the portfolio, I always say start on watercolor paper, start with your traditional designs, very, you know, roses, boats, all the old stuff. Get that down, and then you have to go to a shop. You have to show up in person. I don't like the idea of the hang-around apprenticeship where you're like, you try to weasel your way in.
Make friends with everybody, then you think you have the pull.
Yeah, because I'll have clients that have been in my chair hundreds of times, and then one random appointment, they're like, can I work here? I was like, oh, so you didn't want tattoos from me, you just wanted a job, which I know a lot of old school owners really like the...
I never really liked that because you know what, I'm friendly. I make friends with everybody, and then it puts me in a position because I am a super nice guy sometimes, and I get yelled at for being too nice. And when they ask me for an apprenticeship, I'm like,
You're like,
yeah. So I'm like, sure, and then I just kind of let them die out and fire themselves.
Yeah.
So you know, what I mean, it's not that I don't take them serious. It's just that I get to know them as a friend, and I know they're not taking it serious. But at the same time, as a friend, you want them to fail on their own. So it sucks. And I've never personally, I think I've fired maybe 2 people since I've owned in the past 6 years. And I'm not a big fan of firing anybody. I usually let everybody just fire themselves.
Yeah, or you set them up with another spot that'll work better for them.
Well, and that's my thing too. A lot of like these old heads, they find ownership on people, and they always want to like claim clients, claim their artists, and I'm like, no, we became artists to be gypsies. Like, you know, we want to travel. Like, I'm at the point where I don't even want to be in my shop. I just want to hit the road and travel. Like, I'm up in New York hardly ever. And you know, and you'll be like that too.
That's how I want to be.
I mean, you don't have kids, you don't have anything. You could easily just hit the road right now and just start tattooing, and that's what we should be doing. And you know, when my artists want to go somewhere else, I never have a bad taste in my mouth. I just like, you know, just give me a heads up so I know you're going into a good shop.
And we've had this conversation before where it's like, at some point down the line,
nobody's forever. You're gonna wander, and that happens. But so last thing about the apprentices, what could they expect as far as in, like, there's a lot of talk about how to treat your apprentice, what's right, what's wrong, and you know, some old heads, they treat them with disrespect, and then obviously I didn't treat you guys that way. What should they expect if they was to be an apprentice to do without being lazy?
So there's obviously, I had a really tough apprenticeship the first shop that I was at for a little bit, and it was tough to the point where, you know, the owner would open a bottle of ink, throw it on the ground, and then be like, clean it up. That's unfair. But if you're going into an apprenticeship thinking, I'm going to pick my own hours, I'm going to work whenever I want, and I'm just going to draw and tattoo, that's not the way it works. It's the same thing, like, you're going to school to become a doctor, you're like, oh man, I have to do schoolwork, like, what? or I have to work long hours, you can't be upset about that.
Yeah.
Because tattoo artists are such laid back people and have such a creative job, apprentices go into it thinking, this is going to be a breeze, this is going to be so much fun, but then, a shop owner's like, you have to work, and immediately they're like, oh my god, I can't believe I have to clean the floors.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work,
And then they want to get paid.
Yeah, you're basically managing the shop. As an apprentice, they call it bitch work, but you're really running the shop, and if you don't see that your mentor's letting you take the reins and clean the shop, handle customers up front, do all of the behind the scenes stuff. That's so important, and it is a lot of work. You won't get a day off for 3 weeks, maybe, but
to me, I feel like it's worth it.
It's worth it.
And like this whole talk with you should pay your apprentices, I'm like, no.
It's an internship. You don't get paid at an internship.
Well, and I always tell people, like, I've had arguments with people where they're like, pay your apprentices. I'm like, no. They're volunteering their time. They can volunteer their way out the door.
I paid for my first apprenticeship like it was school.
Yeah, and you had to clean up after a guy who partied half the night.
Yeah.
Useless.
Wipe the Coke off the table with my sleeve.
Oh my god. But yeah, I mean, and that's honestly, it makes me never want to apprentice anybody, because the way this, like, the new age of people coming into this are thinking, and it's like, if I'm giving you a trade and I'm giving you a career, I'm opening my doors up to you, that should be enough payment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking anybody to scrub the floor with a toothbrush. I'm asking you just sweep it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to, like, scrub the toilet with a toothbrush. I'm asking you just go in there and spray, mop the floor, and maybe wipe it down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's it. But yeah, so, but thanks for your input on that.
Of course.
We're gonna wrap it up. If they can find you, where can they find you?
I'm most responsive on Instagram. It's just my full name, Dana Hoteling. Facebook as well. That's pretty much it.
And do we have anything planned for the future for you? Like, anything exciting going on?
Hopefully, I'll be in Florida soon. I get to guest spot.
She says that. We'll see. But, alright guys, thank you for viewing.
Thank
we'll
you.
catch you later.